Afternoon, ma'am. Go ahead and roll that window down for me.
Stop.
Ma'am, I just
leave
need you
me alone. Please leave me alone.
I need you to open the door, step out of the vehicle.
No.
Hand
I'm
on
not
the handle,
getting
let's
out.
go.
No.
Stop it. Go away. Step out, ma'am.
I'm not doing anything. Leave me alone.
It was an ordinary Friday evening. The kind where people are heading home from work, picking up groceries, thinking about the weekend. The kind where nothing is supposed to go wrong. Officer Hayes was running patrol on a stretch of road in a quiet county. Traffic was light. The sky was starting to go dark. He had his radar out, doing what he always did, watching for the drivers who thought the rules did not apply after 6 p.m. A white Kia came rolling down the road. 60 miles an hour. The posted limit was 45. Officer Hayes hit his lights. The Kia's brake lights came on right away. But instead of pulling over to the curb like most people do, the car kept moving. It slowed down, but it did not stop. It kept rolling. Past one intersection. Past a church parking lot. Past a corner store. The officer followed close behind, lights still going, waiting. The Kia finally pulled over about a block and a half later than it should have. Officer Hayes made a mental note of that extra time. In 11 years on the job, he had learned that a driver who takes too long to stop usually has a reason. And the reason is never a good one. Officer Hayes stepped out of his patrol car and walked up to the driver's side window. He was calm. He kept his voice even and professional. He told the driver why he had stopped her. He asked for her license and registration. The driver was a woman in her 30s. She handed over a document without much fuss. For the first few seconds, the stop looked completely normal. Then the energy shifted. She started asking questions. Why did he stop her here? Why didn't he pull her over sooner? He answered her politely. He told her he needed her to step out of the vehicle. She looked at him and said she was not stepping out.
Just like that. Simple.
Flat.
No.
Officer Hayes did not raise his voice. He explained that when an officer gives that instruction during a traffic stop, it is not optional. It is a lawful order. The driver must comply. She told him she did not agree with that. He told her that was fine, but it was still the law. She crossed her arms and stared straight ahead. The stop had been running for less than 2 minutes. And it was already going the wrong direction. Here is something every driver should know. In 1977, the United States Supreme Court decided a case called Pennsylvania versus Mims. What that ruling said was clear. An officer who has lawfully stopped a vehicle has every right to order the driver out of the car. The driver does not get to say no. They do not get to demand a reason first. They do not get to negotiate the terms. They step out. Officer Hayes knew this law. He explained it to the driver in simple, direct language. He was not threatening her. He was telling her the truth. She told him he was wrong. He told her he was not. She said he was being rude. He told her that how she felt about his tone had nothing to do with what she was required to do. He asked her to step out again. His voice was patient. It was steady. He had given the order 3 times now. 3 chances to end this the easy way. She stayed in her seat. Outside the car, the body camera kept recording. Every word, every second of hesitation, every choice she was making, all of it stored on tape, waiting to be used later. Officer Hayes gave her one more chance. He leaned down slightly and looked at her directly. He said it plainly. Step out of the vehicle, or you are going to jail. Those are your 2 options.
She said she wanted to talk first.
He said she could talk outside of the car. She said he was not listening to her. He said he was listening just fine, and she still needed to step out. This went back and forth for several more minutes. She had arguments ready for everything he said. She told him she had rights. He agreed that she did. She told him he needed to explain himself before she moved. He told her he did not. She called him disrespectful. He stayed calm. What she did not understand, or maybe what she was counting on people not understanding, was that her feelings about the situation did not change her legal obligation one bit. An officer does not have to be friendly. He does not have to explain his reasons before giving a lawful order. He just has to be an officer. And she had to comply. She had been given 4 clear orders. She had refused every single one. She tried a new move. After refusing to step out for several minutes, she shifted her approach. She stopped arguing about getting out of the car. Instead, she said, "I want to speak to your sergeant." It came out confident, like she had been saving it, like she believed that once a supervisor arrived, the whole situation would get a second look and she would come out ahead. Officer Hayes radioed his sergeant. The sergeant's reply came back quickly and clearly over the radio. She can speak to him once she is in handcuffs. The driver did not accept this. She repeated the request louder. She said she was not going anywhere until a sergeant came and heard her side. Officer Hayes told her that was not how this worked. She told him he was being disrespectful. He told her that his job was not to manage her feelings. She had now been at the stop for over 10 minutes. She had refused every lawful order, tried to redirect the conversation, demanded a supervisor, and called the officer rude more than once. The sergeant was on his way, but so was another unit, and the driver did not know that yet. Officer Hayes was not going to break the window while he was alone at the car. That is not how it is done. When you close the distance and things get physical with no backup present, a body camera pressed up against the side of a car captures nothing useful. It looks bad on footage even when the officer is doing everything right. And it gives defense attorneys exactly what they want. So he waited. He stood near the driver's window and kept giving her chances. He told her clearly what was going to happen when his backup arrived. He said he would break the glass. He said he would remove her from the car. He said she was going to jail for resisting if she did not step out right now. He gave her those same words several more times. She kept saying no. While this was happening, dispatch quietly ran the plates on the Kia. Officer Hayes received the information in his earpiece. He did not announce it out loud. He did not change his expression. He keyed his radio and said copy. But something about this stop had just become more complicated. What dispatch told him about that car changed everything. The Kia she was driving was not registered in her name. That was the information dispatch sent back. The car came back to someone else entirely. A different name. A different address. Across the county. Officer Hayes kept his face completely still. He kept talking to her at the window, steady and professional, not giving away a single thing. But now the questions in his mind were different. It is one thing to pull over a speeder who is having a bad night and making poor decisions. It is something else entirely to pull over a driver in a car that is not hers, who refuses every lawful order and who keeps watching the officer the way someone does when they are calculating how much he knows. She asked him if he had run her plates. He asked her for her name. He told her that if she refused to identify herself, she would be booked under Jane Doe. She did not answer. He asked again. She told him she wanted the sergeant. Behind her eyes, something was turning over fast. Whatever was making her stay in that car, it was more important to her than avoiding arrest. That alone told a story. Backup arrived. A second unit pulled in quietly behind the Kia. The officer stepped out and took his position without a word. Everything moved to a different level in that moment. The driver saw the second car in her mirror. She looked at Officer Hayes. She looked back at her mirror. Officer Hayes walked to her window one final time. He was carrying a glass-breaking tool. He held it where she could see it. His voice did not shake. He gave her one last clear warning. She could step out on her own right now, or the window was coming out. Those were the only two choices she had left. She looked at the tool. Something changed in her face. Not fear exactly. More like someone doing fast math and not liking the answer. She reached her right hand toward the center console. Officer Hayes took one full step backward. His hand dropped to his side. Nobody outside that car knew what her hand was reaching for. The body camera was rolling. The second officer held position. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then she put the Kia in drive, hit the gas, and left the parking lot at full speed. Just like that, the stop became a pursuit. She pulled out hard and clipped the curb as she went. Officer Hayes was back in his patrol car before the sound of her tires had faded. His voice on the radio was the calmest thing in that entire scene. Direction of travel.
Speed.
Tag number. Vehicle description. All of it delivered flat and controlled, like a man who had done this before and knew exactly what came next. The second unit was already moving. Here is what she had just done. When she drove away from that stop, she left a minor traffic violation behind and picked up a felony. Fleeing and eluding a law enforcement officer. A charge that stays on a record. A charge that changes a case completely. She had turned a speeding ticket into something that could follow her for years. Whatever was in that car, whatever she was protecting, it had to be worth more to her than all of that. It had to be worth the risk of a high-speed chase. Worth the risk of getting hurt. Worth every charge that was about to be filed against her. The question was, what could possibly be worth all of that? She drove through a residential grid, moving at about 47 miles an hour. Not reckless, not out of control, but deliberate. She turned left, then right, then left again. She knew these streets. She was not panicking. She was navigating. Officer Hayes followed. His radio was steady. He called every turn, every change in speed, every street name. Dispatch tracked her through the camera grid and fed updates to the units working to cut her off. The second officer moved through a parallel street, guessing where she was heading. There is a T intersection about 2 miles north that connects to the highway on-ramp. If she reached that highway, the pursuit would become more dangerous and much harder to control. More units would be needed. More risk for everyone on the road. She was heading straight for it. She turned onto the final street between her and the on-ramp. Officer Hayes watched her taillights and pressed harder. The second unit was somewhere ahead of her now, positioning quietly. She had one more block, then half a block. Then the intersection came into view. And what she saw when she got there was not what she expected. The second unit was already parked at the mouth of the service road, blocking the way to the on-ramp. The driver saw it. She slowed down, just for a second, uncertain which direction to go. That second was all Officer Hayes needed. He closed the gap fast and executed a pit maneuver. A controlled tap against the rear quarter panel of the Kia. Done right, the move breaks the rear tire's grip on the road and spins the car to a stop without causing a high-speed crash. Officer Hayes had done it right. The Kia spun 90 degrees and stalled at the entrance of a parking lot. Both units were on her immediately. 2 more arrived within a minute. Blue and white lights filled the street from end to end. Officer Hayes stepped out of his car and moved to a position of cover. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who had been patient for a very long time and was now completely done. Step out of the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. She had run. She had been stopped. She had nowhere left to go. But she was not done making things worse. She still would not get out. Even now, car disabled, surrounded on all sides, for officers present, the pursuit over. She would not unbuckle her seatbelt. She kept screaming for them to stop. She said she had not done anything wrong. She said it over and over while officers worked to get her door open and remove her from the vehicle. If you were keeping count of how many times she said the word stop during the extraction, you would run out of patience long before she ran out of the word. The officers worked methodically.
No rusing. No anger.
Calm and deliberate, step by step, the way trained people do a job they have done before. They got her out of the car. And here is the thing that stood out the most in that moment. She had spent the entire stop telling Officer Hayes that he would not talk to her, that no one would listen, that all she wanted was a conversation. But now, with 4 officers present and the situation fully under control, she was screaming that she had not done anything wrong. She had been given 30 chances to have that conversation. She drove away from every single one. They were guiding her toward the patrol car. Her hands were cuffed behind her. Multiple officers were on scene. For body cameras were rolling. The street was quiet except for the radios and the sound of her voice. And then she did something that nobody who has watched this footage has ever forgotten. She threw her head back and screamed for her daddy. Not a legal term. Not a rights violation. Not the name of a lawyer or a supervisor.
Daddy.
She was in her 30s. The officers did not react. They kept moving forward, calm and professional, guiding her to the car, one officer telling her to watch her head at the door. There is something that happens to people when everything falls apart at once. When the strategy does not work, and the running does not work, and the arguing does not work, and the screaming does not work. What is left at the bottom of all of that is the most basic version of the person. The voice they had when they were 5 years old and needed someone bigger to fix it. Her daddy was not coming. Nobody was coming. The trunk was still closed. But not for long. In the back of the patrol car, she kept talking. She turned to the officer monitoring her and said clearly, "You never talked to me. You did not give me a chance to explain. Nobody listened to my side." The officer said nothing. Less than 10 seconds later, another officer came to the window and tried to start a conversation with her. She looked at him and said, "I am not talking to nobody." She said both of those things, back to back, without any pause in between. First, that no one had spoken to her. Then, that she was not speaking to anyone. This is the moment that video editors clip and replay, because it puts the entire stop into a single frame. She did not want a conversation. She wanted time. From the moment those lights came on behind her, she had been stalling. Every argument, every refusal, every demand for a supervisor, it was all the same thing. She was buying minutes. She needed minutes because something in that car could not be explained away. And now the officers were walking back toward the Kia. One of them reached for the trunk release. The sergeant arrived on scene. She had been asking for him since the beginning. Since the first parking lot. Since before the pursuit started. The sergeant was the answer she had been waiting for. The higher authority who would hear her out and make everything stop. Sergeant Torres walked over to the patrol car. He crouched down to her level. He gave her his full attention and let her say everything she wanted to say. He did not interrupt. He waited until she was done. Then he told her calmly that everything she described would be addressed at the station. Right now she was in custody and they needed to transport her. She said he was disrespectful. She had now told that to Officer Hayes. She had said it to the second officer. She had said it to the sergeant. Every single person who came to that window received the same label from her. Because the label was never really about the person. It was a strategy. A wall. A way to make the conversation about manners instead of about what was in the trunk. The sergeant stood up. The officers were still at the Kia, and the trunk was open. The post-arrest inventory search is standard procedure. Every item logged. Every compartment checked. It protects everyone, including the person in custody. Officer Hayes moved through the Kia carefully. Front seat. Back seat. Center console. Then, he popped the trunk. He looked inside. He did not move. He stood there for a few seconds, completely still, and then he stepped back and called the second officer over with 2 fingers. The second officer came around, looked into the trunk, and did not speak either. Then Officer Hayes picked up his radio and quietly requested a supervisor and a scene log. He closed the trunk and stood beside the car. What was inside told the whole story. Stolen mail. Hundreds of pieces of it sorted into bundles and organized by neighborhood. Personal checks. Benefit letters. Bank statements. Financial documents from households across the area. All of it collected, all of it sorted, all of it ready to be handed off. She was not just a difficult driver who had a bad night. She was running stolen mail for an operation that had been targeting people's mailboxes across the county. That was what she had been protecting the whole time. That was why she would not get out of the car. Here is where a lot of people watching this story expected justice to land fast and hard. It did not. She was released the very next morning. Recognizance release. No cash required. The formal bond was set at $0.
0.
The charges filed were fleeing and eluding a law enforcement officer and resisting an officer without violence. Serious charges. Charges that should have moved quickly through the system given the body cam footage, the stolen mail, and the full pursuit on record. Instead, the case slowed to almost nothing. Motion after motion for continuance was filed by the defense. The court granted them, then granted more. 2 years passed. The case was still open. The next scheduled court date sat on the calendar, like a bookmark in a book nobody was reading. 2 years for a case with video evidence, physical evidence, and multiple officers as witnesses. She walked out the morning after her arrest with no money on the line and no trial date set. The system that had worked perfectly that night on the road had handed her the one thing she had been trying to buy from the very beginning. More time. Officer Hayes did everything right. He made a legal stop. He gave clear, patient lawful orders. He waited for backup before taking action. He executed a safe pit maneuver. He treated the driver professionally even while she argued, refused, and ran. The body camera recorded all of it. And when that trunk opened, it confirmed what his instincts had been telling him from the moment she rolled a block and a half past where she should have stopped. She was not a confused driver having a bad night. She was someone with something to hide, running a clock she could not stop. The stolen mail, the bundles sorted by neighborhood, the financial documents belonging to people who had no idea their information was being passed around, all of that came out because of a radar gun, a traffic stop, and an officer who stayed patient when staying patient was hard. As of now, the case is still open. The delays continue. But the camera does not forget. The evidence does not disappear. And somewhere in those stacks of stolen mail were names and addresses of real people who deserved better. That part of the story is not over yet.